Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for July 15th through the 21st. This week is about unexpected culminations and successes, and there's a little bit of agitation and angstiness in here too. So there's really these themes around feeling a sense of completion and being drawn towards success, I think in sometimes maybe an unexpected way, or a way where when you get riled up, that sort of leads you towards something. That's a bit of the theme that I'm feeling into initially in this week. This, of course, involves Mars making its exact conjunction to Uranus, and then we also have a full moon, our second full moon in Capricorn. So we're going to talk about all of that this week. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and an astrologer, and I'm so happy to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So let's talk about, so we're within the context of the new moon in Cancer that happened on the 5th of July. So we're within that monthly lunar cycle. I think last week was quite sharp, possibly intense and full feeling week, with Venus moving into Leo and then making an opposition to Pluto. That's sort of a striking and intensity of affect sort of feeling. So this week we have more, not more of the same, we have more of a different kind of a flavor of intensity. I do think this week strikes me as a bit cathartic, where there might be sort of a lot of energy and then a release. That may be the case. And I'm saying that because a big part of this week is that we'll have Mars making a conjunction to Uranus. So we've been moving towards this because Mars moves a little bit slower than, let's say, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. Its transits happen over a longer period of time. So it's kind of more of like a longer, slower burn. And in this case, we've been leading up to this week with Mars being the planet of aggression, assertiveness, being direct, confronting an issue, fighting for something, advocating for something, standing up for yourself or for someone else. Mars is really the external and internal defense system. So psychologically, when we get angry, or even minor low-level frustration, that's usually a signal that something is off, that something is not right or it's wrong at some varying level or degree. And of course, psychologically, that may be something where maybe we get mad about something and there is an objective wrongness or bad fit or injustice about it. And then sometimes maybe we get mad about something and there's some sort of unconscious patterning that's connecting us into our anger. And so when we work with Mars, it's really helpful to look at what is activating that anger, that frustration. And the anger is not bad. It's information. It's telling us about things. Now, of course, it's not always the most pleasant experience to have, but it is alerting us to something. It's our psychological defense system. And so when we have Mars coming into contact with a planet, there is this sense of quickening, of an impulse to act or advocate or defend or fight. It kind of that psychological impulse gets amplified. And I think that we can also simply, at a more superficial or mundane level, we can maybe just be a little cranky or agitated or angsty. Mars very much reminds me of teenagery kind of energy. There's the impulse to separate oneself. It's a part in some ways of the individuation process. So we have Mars coming into, so a conjunction is when two planets appear to be together at the same point in the sky, in this case also in the zodiac. And so they are coming together, Mars and Uranus, or they're appearing to. And Uranus is the planet that is about the unexpected. It's about radical change and innovation, and it usually happens in a way where it is unexpected, where we didn't plan for it, and it happens in a way that we could never imagine. Uranus is very much about going outside of what is comfortable, and sometimes that can be just for the sake of novelty or for the sake of change. Uranus transits, like if you're having a Uranus transit to your birth chart, there's usually a correlation with a desire, a felt sense to revise or revision or do something differently, especially where something in your life has already been feeling stale or boring or just lifeless in some kind of way. And this does not, like the astrology doesn't cause this to happen. So I think that whenever we're talking about Uranus, it's important to think about the areas in our lives where maybe something has been stale or mundane or not enlivening, like where it's just been, we're kind of like going through the motions with it. And to the degree that you have those kinds of experiences, because when that happens, usually we're sort of, not intentionally, of course, but often throughout life, there's a way where we maybe get comfortable in a pattern or a routine. And because it is so comfortable, we don't notice when it starts to become stale or boring or not, or simply not a good fit anymore, that it needs some refreshing. And so the more that we have the more that we have staleness in our life, the more work that Uranus has to do, and the more radical it can feel sometimes. So I think this really depends, of course, on how this Mars-Uranus is transiting your personal birth chart, and then also what's happening in your life now. Are there a lot of things that are ripe for innovation and change? And also this is the other thing with Uranus too, is that it can be change for the sake of change, for the sake of novelty, and ideally it is change that is reorienting us to our own North Star, to our own sense of needs and desires and authentic way of being. And this is something that we're continuing to experience over our lifetime. I think that we're all in the process of becoming who it is that we are, and discovering what layers of ourselves, our cultural conditioning, family conditioning, our own natural temperament combined with our external experience, what we've sort of have inherited from our external situation, from our lineage, and then what is individual to us, and how we choose to respond to all of these factors too. And I think Uranus reminds us that no one is exempt from cultural conditioning, and that we get to revolt against that at varying different times in our lives. And there is this like instability with Uranus. There's kind of this uncertainty kind of vibe, but it can also be really exhilarating at the same time. So these are all experiences and feelings that you may be having. And I want to say too, I think that when we have a more dramatic transit like this, Mars-Uranus, there can be a lot of fear that comes up, because it can kind of be like, oh, what's going to happen? Something bad is going to happen. We don't always like the unexpected, especially when it feels like our life is, when there is a vulnerability or a precariousness or even a lack of security in some way. So I want to emphasize that astrology does not come in and make something bad happen, though of course it can sometimes feel that way. Rather, astrology is sort of like a psychological cosmic clock. It sort of correlates to what is coming into being in our lives from within and from without. And so also, okay, so all of this to say, like, we already have been churning the Mars-Uranus wheel. And so where have you already, the last couple of weeks, been feeling a sense of wanting to change something, or feeling kind of like agitation or frustration with something? What's kind of already been churning around in your... Okay, my video got cut off there for a second. Sometimes that happens, and this time I decided to leave it in because it felt very Uranian, like the unexpected. I had a little like timer alarm thing. I have a million alarms, reminders, blah, blah, blah. So I had one of those go off in the middle of filming this, and I forgot that I had it on. So like that's just like textbook Uranus. It's something that that I had already done. Like, the Uranus did not cause, like, I did the alarm. Like, I set up the preset alarms in my phone, but then I forgot about it. And then it unexpectedly came in when I wasn't anticipating it. So that is maybe, if you're with me, that is maybe a good example of that nothing happens in a vacuum, that it's always this sort of lead up, and then there is something that is more apparent, that is more literal or manifest or more striking to us. Now, let's see, I feel like there was a little more that I wanted to say about this. So yeah, I think that this, like, we can we can expect unexpected angsty aggression kind of energy and feeling tone. So that might be something that you experience yourself. It might be something that you see in the people around you. And whenever we have Mars-Uranus in aspect to one another, especially the conjunction like this, I think it's really helpful to slow down and to a couple things. To make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, that you're not going so fast that you're gonna stumble all over yourself and end up missing something or hurting yourself. Like, it's kind of like an accident prone sort of energy to it. Like again, very adolescent angsty. It's like there's and I'm also thinking of like the knights in the tarot. There's sort of this like excitement to move forward, to take action, and then sometimes that can be where things are moving so fast, and then there's sort of like something gets tripped up. So we're just going to sort of watch for that this week. We're going to take it easy. We're not going to come in hot as much as we can. And also, I think there's something to be said for finding an outlet, a healthy outlet of our choosing for Mars-Uranus. And so let's see, what may this look like? I think this can definitely look like doing some sort of physical activity that feels good to you, that feels like you're able to move in a way that is free and spontaneous. This can be like going for a walk and listening to some really fun music, or dancing, or swimming, or doing some sort of, like, I'm getting an image of someone like taking colored pencils and just sort of like doing a bunch of random scribbles or something on a page. Like anything that sort of has like an erratic movement kind of feel to it. That's going to be a healthy outlet for this. And then also, Uranus is the planet that is connected with omens, synchronicity, and divination. I think Mercury also has some connection to these things as well. But Uranus really holds the unexpected and numinous and magical quality of synchronicity and omens. And so I think also this week, there is this potential to connect with signs, synchronicities, omens. Frankly, I think omen and synchronicity are sort of the same thing. And we could be thinking about our world symbolically and looking for something that draws our attention. That is either like a commentary or an affirmation on something that we're doing or something that we're thinking about. And then, of course, you can literally invoke this by doing a divination for yourself, by pulling a tarot card or an oracle card or looking at your astrology or any number of things. So there's this kind of like divinatory, synchronistic kind of vibe to this week as well. So, as always, there's such a multitude of experiences, and I'm so curious to hear how this comes into being for you this particular week. Okay, now, a little bit more to talk about with Mars. So this is really the bulk of the week that this is happening, Mars-Uranus. And then Mars will change signs this week. So on Saturday, Mars will move from Taurus, where Uranus is, into Gemini. And I think this is really striking for a couple of different reasons, because during especially Monday and Tuesday, when Mars and Uranus are together still, we're going to have the moon in Scorpio, which is opposite Mars and Uranus. And so the moon is, the waxing moon is like really amplifying and putting an exclamation point on Mars-Uranus. So I think that like, especially early in the week, we're really in it. We're really feeling like there's kind of like this wound up kind of energy. A lot of passion, a lot of excitement, and yeah, maybe a little angstiness. And then Mars, so we're feeling into that most of this week. And then over the weekend, on Saturday, Mars moves into Gemini, and then we have our full moon in Capricorn on Sunday. So there's kind of this like intensity of energy. There's sort of like this feeling kind of like a building towards something, and then Mars moves into Gemini, and there's kind of this like shift, like where whatever it was that has happened, and then Mars in Gemini is like, oh, now it's this switch to a different tone, but then we still have the full moon in Capricorn, which is another sort of culminating kind of energy. So I really feel like this week is there's a lot going on. There's a lot of big feelings, a lot of big emotions, a lot of big experiences. And again, this might be more external, it might be more internal. And I think that the more that we can do this week to stay connected with what our experience is, that is going to help us move through in a way where we feel not as overwhelmed, or I was going to say overwhelmed the least amount possible. So I actually really like Mars moving into Gemini because it will be making a trine to Pluto. It'll be with Jupiter. So there's this kind of more easeful energy to it. Also, Mars and Taurus with Uranus is kind of a paradoxical kind of energy, because Mars is about moving towards something very quickly, very dynamically. Mars is about our inner impulse to act. And Taurus is a fixed earth sign, so it's very much about rooting into what is. It's very much about staying and sustaining. And so those two energies, Mars and Taurus, are sort of in conflict with each other in some ways. I think that there can be a great capacity for taking action in a way that is sustainable and growth inducing. And there's usually it's like a little bit difficult. And this is why Mars in this place is said to be in its detriment, that it is not as easy, it is not as easeful as other places for Mars. And so this shift into Gemini on Saturday, the 20th, I think there's a little more ease that comes in for us, and a sort of a relief also from the connection with Uranus. Mars in Gemini, there is this ability to move freely, to focus more on doing through communication and exchange of ideas. And so there's an ease. There's an ease of taking action. Yeah. Okay. Other things. So we're going to talk about the full moon, but before we get there, also part of what's happening this week is that both the Sun and Mercury are making a connection with Chiron. So the Sun, still in Cancer, is making a square to Chiron in Aries. And so this is about bringing awareness to the healing process, bringing awareness to how you give and receive, awareness to how you accept and take care of yourself and how you take care of others, and the balance, the harmony, the reciprocity between that. The Sun also being the sense of identity and ego and self, and the part of you that says that your needs are important and your needs are valid, and Chiron being where there has been a construing of those needs. And so I think this week also there's a lot that may come up around how you spend your time, how you spend your energy, how you prioritize your needs. And actually, I was also thinking too this week, there's a lot around tending to your sensory experiences. And I think for folks who are sensitive, empathic, intuitive, neurodivergent, I think that this week there may be a lot more, especially around looking at what it is that is overstimulating and what is soothing as far as your sensory experience. Because with Mars-Uranus, there's a lot here around amping up the sensory experience. And that can be literal sights, sounds, etc., but it can also be the emotional processing that you're doing. And then I think that the Sun making this square to Chiron is asking how you take care of yourself in a way that honors your sense of vitality, with the Sun being a sense of our inner vitality, our inner fire. And Mercury is making a helpful trine to Chiron. So I like this also because it's kind of like there's this easy flow of new information or new ideas or new insights around your healing process, around how you take care of yourself, and maybe even receiving help or support from other people. Okay. So let's see, when does this happen? So on Sunday, we have our full moon in Capricorn. This is exact on Sunday, the 21st at 3:17 a.m. Pacific time at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So each year we have one lunation that gets a double dose. So we have one new or full moon where it happens in the same sign twice. And in this case, it happens to be Capricorn. So we had a full moon in Capricorn last month at the beginning of the sign. And now we have our full moon in Capricorn this month at the end of the sign. Capricorn is about material safety, security, success. It's about building a solid, strengthened foundation and structure. It's about the practicalities of life, the practicalities of doing what you say, saying what you're going to do. It has this sort of serious tone to it. And the Cancer-Capricorn axis, so we have the Sun in Cancer, the Moon in Capricorn, this axis of these signs are really about how we get our needs met and feel safe and secure both in the material and practical way via the physical experience with Capricorn, and then via the internal emotional way, feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling like we're important with Cancer. So we're really working this energy, especially when it comes to Capricorn. And so always full moons, there's this sense of culmination. There's this sense of things that have led you here. The things that you've been doing in your life, you see the results when there is a full moon. And of course, wherever this full moon is landing in your birth chart, wherever you have Capricorn in your birth chart, that will give you more information about what's happening personally in your life. And for all of us, there is this collective sense of culmination. I think that Capricorn can also be connected to feelings of success and how we feel, our relationship to success, how we feel successful or not, how we measure that, what that means to us, the complicated and paradoxical feelings about success. I think it's very common to feel like in some ways we want what we deem success, but then there can be a fear of that because of what that means when we actually get that, when we actually accomplish that. And full moon in Capricorn can also bring up experiences around our sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and where maybe we feel insufficient in some way, where we feel like we are not good enough. And so I think this, especially this weekend, is a beautiful time to hold space for all of the thoughts and feelings that may come up around that. And these are things that that we often have throughout the lifetime, and then they just sort of shift and change depending on what's happening and what our experiences is and how we hold them. So I think the more that you can hold whatever storyline it is that's coming up and look at it and say, oh, like, isn't that interesting? I'm having that thought. I wonder what that is about, or I'm just going to let that be here without trying to change it. I think that one of the challenges of the moon in Capricorn is there can be an impulse to try to change something, to try to control something. Yeah, control is a big theme with Capricorn energy. And so I think this week it's like, okay, how can you hold space for all of the parts of you that want to control, and then realize that you cannot control your experience. You cannot control your emotional experience. You can hold space for it, but it's going to be what it's going to be. I think this week is really about taking action towards your authentic needs and sort of coming clean to yourself about what your needs actually are, that and that it is really important for you to pursue doing what you love, what is important to you, what brings you a sense of comfort and ease and feeling protected. I think there can be a sense of culmination around events or experiences or feelings around material security, safety, and success. The other thing I was thinking about this too is there's sort of this like theme around healing tender places in the psyche through like extraction. And I'm not quite sure exactly what that means, but that was just sometimes when I look at the astrology, I get like a phrase or a term. And I was thinking Mars is often connected with cutting or extracting, and it feels like, especially with the sun Chiron, there's something here around tending to a vulnerability or something where we feel that there has been pain or trauma there, and how can we extract or remove something that has been maybe festering for a long time, that at one point needed to be there, but right now it's causing problems. And so we can dissolve that or extract that in some way. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to pull some tarot for you. And As always, I love to hear how you experience this and what's going on for you. I think there's no right way to experience the astrology. It's so nuanced and diverse. So this is the time in the reading where you get to just relax and connect in with your own experience of yourself through movement or stillness or taking in the sights and sounds and temperatures around you. And maybe within that place, within yourself, within your heart, there is a situation or a question that arises in your awareness. And I'm going to pull 3 cards here, so if you like, you can choose one out of those 3 to be your card that's special to you. We'll do one more shuffle. Okay. So, card number 1 is the Queen of Cups. This is such a beautiful card. Like always, the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is very ethereal, intuitive, creative. There's this like psychic-y kind of vibe to it. But psychic-y that's different than the High Priestess. The Queen of Cups, to me, sort of has this like maternal sort of, it's kind of like, yeah, more of the maternal vibe versus the High Priestess is kind of more of like the elder intuitive energy. Anyways, so in this card there is a person here with a crown, and it kind of looks like they're sitting back on a like a seashell, like there's like a seashell like headrest behind them, like a clamshell sort of shape, and they're cradling one cup with what looks like crab hands underneath the cup, and then they have what looks like a lunar tattoo on their arm. And so this pose, to me, there's this receptive, reclining quality to this person. There's like a surrendery kind of, like they're not checked out, but they're sort of just in their own experience of what's happening. It's very peaceful, very calm. And I don't know why I'm getting this right now, but it feels like they're almost like, I'm going with the intuitive, psychic-y kind of vibe, I guess. It's almost kind of like they're doing a reading from the cup, like they're divining with the cup in some way. Maybe they're scrying, maybe they're picking up an intuitive sense from it, but there is that nurturing kind of sense with the cup. And I think this card is a reminder that you have a strong intuitive sense about things, that you have a strong feeling about things, and to trust that is really valuable and important. Especially now, that's something that's important, and that you don't need to figure everything out by thinking your way through it, that there is a sense of power, the queen being a position of power and influence, that you have power and influence via your intuitive sense, via your spatial creative mind part. So we may go back to that, but that's just what strikes me so far. And I think it's really funny that there's like the little crab claw here when we're in Cancer season. So it's kind of like this thing around. Yeah, also, okay, so side note, Cancer in the zodiac is a cardinal sign. And cardinal signs, there is ambition, there is bravery, there is initiative. So it's like there is this energy within Cancer that is strong, that is brave, that is like wanting to move forward and do things. But it's in a way that's a bit more subdued than, let's say, Aries or Capricorn or even Libra for that matter. So I think this card is saying that even that strength can be quiet, that it doesn't have to be something that hits you over the head, that strength can be, have a softness to it. Okay. Second card is the King of Wands. So interesting, a queen and then a king. And in this card, this card is sort of hilarious to me. In this card, the person looks like they have just left their house out the window and they're on a broom and they're sort of like flying straight up in the air on the broom. And they're sort of like, all right, peace out, I'm out of here. And they're like looking back at their cat in the house. So it's always kind of like, looks like they're escaping or something, or they're like sneaking out. So I pulled this reversed, and what I'm thinking here is the king is also power, authority, influence, being seen, having a public presence or persona. And when we're talking about the King of Wands, there is this connection with inspiration, intuitive ideas, and also passions, creativity. So it's like this part of us that wants to do something fun, that wants to act. It's like very Mars kind of energy. And so this is telling me that there's something here like that's like, I don't know, actually, as I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like you want to do something, but it's not quite clear what it is that you want to do. And if I'm looking at this card upside down, the person is going straight down to the ground. So it's kind of like maybe it might feel like things are a little mixed up or things are a little flipped. And that maybe it would be helpful to flip things. I'm really thinking about the polarity of the full moon and how Uranus sometimes can have us feel like we want to flip things. And so, I don't know, it feels like maybe there's something here around flipping, looking at something at an entirely different perspective. Because, yeah, this person like going out the window, they're leaving the situation. Okay, yeah. So they're leaving a situation of security, of comfort in the home, and they're going sort of out into the open sky. And that may require some orientation. That may require some sort of figuring out what's up, what's down. And I think that right now there's some confusion, and it's inherently connected to how you feel influential, how you feel like you have a sense of autonomy and power, and how you feel like you're the boss of you. There's this kind of maybe challenge around that, or feeling like... So the court cards, the king and the queen, they are the ones that are like the decision makers. They're the ones that decide how things happen and how things go. And so I wonder if there's something here around the King of Wands that feels like you don't quite know what it is that you want to do. There's lack of clarity there. Yeah. Okay. So let's maybe go back to that in a second. Okay. And then last card number 3 is the Eight of Swords. So this card sometimes is a little bit nerve-wracking or scary, but I actually quite like this card. So this card is about feeling trapped or feeling bound in some way, and usually in a way that causes a lot of mental stress or anxiety or worry. And you might be like, Shawna, why is this a good card? And I say that because the type of blockage or feeling stuck, this is something in this card, it's something that you have created in some way. So there's like a mental distortion when this card comes up. In the traditional imagery of this card, it's a picture or a drawing of a person who is surrounded by swords, and they're blindfolded and their arms are bound, but everything is very loose. So like all the binds are very loose, and there's like an open path where the swords are. So they could, if they wanted to, very easily just undo things and go forward, but they feel that the feeling is that they are bound and there is nothing that they can do. And this is like, I want to say that this is not to downplay the power of the experience of feeling powerless. Like that, of course, has a profound effect on us, and there is a reason why we feel that way. There are experiences that create that sort of experience. And what this card is telling me is that there's something here around unbinding yourself from something that you're able to unbind yourself from. That this is not an impossible situation, that you actually have more freedom, more capacity and ability to free yourself than you think that you do. And so I think it's very interesting that this comes at the end of this spread. So yeah, so there's the core situation here is around your felt sense for things. It's around your intuitive sense, your feeling sense, your inner knowing. That your inner knowing is very powerful and very important. And that maybe wants some extra attention this week. And it's like, okay, so that might be a little confusing too. Or it might feel like, okay, yeah, also, so the thing with intuition is sometimes we're like, yes, I have it. I have this intuitive hit, or I have this feeling, and so I'm going to go for it. And then we do that and we're like, oh, wait, that wasn't quite it. Or we misread the situation, or our intuitive hit actually meant something else. So I think there can be this kind of like figuring out of what this actually is, figuring out what the intuitive sense actually is for you, and sort of like figuring out how to decode your experience. I think also talking about earlier sensitivity and sensory sensitivity, neurodivergence, I feel like the Queen of Cups really speaks to that as well, because there is a high amount of sensitivity with this card. And so with emotional and empathic sensitivity, there also comes a sort of sensitivity in that we become more permeable to the world around us. So that might be a factor of what's happening here, and that it can kind of throw you off a little bit when you have more exposure to things, or there's more of a sensitivity, kind of like a dysregulated kind of situation can occur. And then that brings up the situations where you feel trapped, where you feel locked in, where there are no options, and you cannot even see the way forward. And so I would say the sort of pathway through this, like this is leading you to possibly confront the ways that you bind yourself, or the ways, maybe not the ways that you bind yourself, but to confront the ways that you wait, hang on. Okay, but this is like coming into my brain. So yeah, like confronting the ways where you sort of go numb, or where you dissociate, or where you become complacent with something that doesn't serve you, because it's easier to just sort of tolerate something that doesn't work for you than to go through the process of making a change or removing yourself from that situation. And I think, of course, this is complicated because we can change some things, we can't change other things, etc. I know that you know this, and so your situation is going to be unique to you. But I really feel there's kind of like maybe this inner calling, this inner longing for something that there's something that you've already been feeling on your heart that you want to change, and that this is leading to a confrontation with the ways that you feel like you cannot see, and that in itself, that confrontation will help you to see things more clearly, and will help you to walk through and away from something that feels trapping. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed this. It's always such an honor and a pleasure to do these readings for you. I always love hearing how you're doing and how this astrology is landing for you, and always so grateful for your comments or reviews or any way that you interact with these videos, because I love hearing from you. And then also it helps this podcast and the videos to become more visible to other people who are also interested in astrology from a psychological perspective. My name is Shawna McGrath. If you want to find out more about me, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com. Until next time, I am sending you lots of love and wishing you a wonderful week. Okay, bye.